Today marked the first day of the 16th Annual Westchester University Poetry Conference, exploring form and narrative. After alumni and staff checked in over 250 registered participants to their workshops and opening events, the first day was celebrated with a dinner banquet. Mike Pike, retiring conference founder and director, provided the opening remarks, as he has for 16 years.
Would all of you who are attending the conference for the very first time, would you all please stand? All of you, don't be bashful.
Distinguished colleagues spoke about Mike Pike's contributions to poetry in the United States as well.
All of us who write have certain things in common, and that is that we've learned over the years that through education and discipline, we become more creative. But there are now people all over the country teaching what they learned here. And of course, there's no greater legacy than to spread education. I want to, in a sense, toast him at mid-career, because now we're all going to watch what Mike does next. And congratulations for everything you've done, and we're looking forward to everything that you're about to do. Thank you, Mike.
I'm delighted to have this opportunity to recognize the contributions of a very special person and dear friend, Diane Pike. I'm sure all of us in this room recognize that Mike is incredibly lucky to be married to Diane, and particularly as he's developed this Poetry Center and its conference.
After acknowledging Diane Pike for her role as hostess, support, and mother figure to the conference, Suzanne and others had several surprises for Mike.
Thanks to Jamie Smith's organizational skills and creativity, a book entitled In Appreciation of Poetry, In Appreciation of Michael Pike has been created. And Mike, while you've been busy planning this year's conference, the rest of us have been submitting our thoughts and memories of you to Jamie. And I have here a custom-made book with all of these expressions of gratitude. And it's my pleasure as a representative of all of your many admirers to present it to you. Please come up.
Mike was also presented with a handcrafted wastebasket depicting hands tossing crumpled paper, a humorous portrait of himself, and the announcement of a new Poetry Conference Scholarship Fund established in his name. Last, Dana Gioia provided a tribute to Mike Pike and his extraordinary leadership and vision.
Beyond the reaches of history, the basic human art which gives us the ability to articulate what it means to be alive and mortal on this earth. All of these arts depend on being refreshed, renewed, and supported each generation. At the heart of every great institution, there are one or two or three or more individuals who make a difference. And the history of the arts is the history of great and dedicated individuals. Mike Pike is an extraordinary individual in the history of American poetry, not merely for what he's accomplished, but because he has accomplished it as someone who is himself not a poet. This is something in a room with this much narcissism and self-regard which vendors the imagination. He has helped create and has sustained and nourished and grown and constantly improved what is now the largest annual all-poetry conference in the United States, which is probably to say, probably in the world. 16, 17 years ago, Mike was visiting California. We were in my parents' kitchen. Both my folks were still alive. Mike and I had just polished off a bottle of Pinot Noir. And after a certain amount of alcohol, ideas become plausible, which would not otherwise seem practical. And we reflected that there were 3,500 writers' conferences in the United States, and not one of them offered a chance to study poetry as perhaps Robert Frost or Dante would have understood it. In a sense, as a set of captivating skills and techniques that the young poet and the apprentice and journeyman poet mastered. That those people who learned these things in the United States either had to teach themselves on their own or had the fortune of studying with one of the dozen or so people who still thought this important. Now the interesting thing is you can't teach creativity, you can't teach genius, but you can teach technique. And in fact, arts like music or painting or dance have always understood this. You take the passionate, talented newcomer, and by training them in the techniques that have come before them, that others master, they miraculously discover their own identity and originality. We thought it would be a good idea to try this. So we wanted some sagacious advice, and so we called Mark Jarman. We figured he had more experience in this than we did. We told Mark, we want to do this, and Mark said, it's a bad idea. You don't have a budget, you don't have a venue, you don't have a staff. All three of these extremely sensible things to say. But with, encouragement like that, how could we not go forward? We decided to do this, and in 1995, we had the first conference. I called Richard Wilbur up, and I made him a similar offer. And Dick said that, well, he had this very high-paying engagement that night for the Academy of Fame or something. The thing that really struck with me is that he was being set alphabetically at this event between Vanessa Williams and Vanna White. I was impressed. And I told him that why I thought that it was important to do this and why we couldn't make it work without him. And why I felt that for American poetry, he should turn down the high-paying gig and come here for nothing. And I said, don't tell me right now, because the only sensible thing you can say is no. I'll call you back in 2 days. I called back in 2 days, and his wife answered the phone, and she said, this is Dana Joya, and she said, oh, you! And so I knew that Dick had accepted our offer. And we came together, we had about 85 people, and at the end, no one wanted to leave. And we decided that we would do it again. And we've been doing it again each year since 1995, constantly adding things. It has been Mike's intellectual and diplomatic genius that has allowed us to do that. Of the many things that I've been involved with in my life as a writer, and my life in the arts, there is none more dear to me than the Westchester Conference. And there is no colleague I have ever had more dear to me than Mike Pike, who's the co-founder, my colleague, as we say, as Sicilians and Mexicans, my compadre. But I'd like this group of ingrates to get up one more time off their seats and thank this non-poet who has changed America.
Following the banquet, participants migrated to Swope Music Hall, where keynote speaker Rina Espaillat provided the first poetry reading of the conference. The event continues in Westchester, Pennsylvania through tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday, with workshops for conference participants and poetry readings open to the public. For more information or to see the conference program, visit www.wcupa.edu/poetry.